Over the last few days, I've seen some brilliant winter hiking photos posted to social media, so that has enticed me to get out and do a hike with the hopes of catching some good snow. It was the 28th of December when I recorded this footage, so that meant a dark start as days are short, but it wasn't long before I came across patches of snow as I gained some elevation. Today I'm climbing Helvellyn again. I think I've got a bit of a problem with this mountain since this is my fourth ascent of the year, but it seemed like a good choice for an easy ascent that was high enough that there might be a decent bit of snow at the top. The problem is, it's not quite cold enough here at the moment, even though it is the end of December. Even at the top of the fells, it's still about 1 degree Celsius. It felt very cold though. The forecast said the feels like temperature was minus 9 degrees Celsius, but with it bouncing above and below zero, the snow wasn't persistent. It's coming and going. The higher up I got though, the more frequent the snow patches were, and the bigger they were. Sadly, also, the higher up that I got, the more strongly the rain came down. It started raining when I was about 2/3 of the way up, and it did not stop until I was back at the car. Even though it was wet and cold, there was a surprising amount of hikers out. I saw something like 12 other hikers, so I guess that's just the Christmas holidays for you, but it's still surprising to see so many people out when the weather is so poor. Also, I should probably point out that of the dozen hikers that I saw, I witnessed 5 of them fall down on the ice and snow. When it comes to winter safety, I see a lot of people talking about crampons and microspikes, or maybe even ice axes, for when it gets really bad. But in patchy snow conditions like this, you don't really need that stuff. But you probably should consider carrying a helmet. They weigh basically nothing, and the number of slips and falls on the descent today was pretty bad. And a head injury halfway up a mountain in the snow is going to give you a bad day. Another piece of kit I was very happy to have with me today were my goggles. I think people worry about looking cool a little bit too much whilst out hiking, and at this point it started hailing and the wind at the top was punishing, so my goggles came in really helpful. I saw some people pulling up their hoods as close as they could to try and cover their faces and avoid the sting of hails on bare skin, but goggles fixed that problem entirely. Although it was really wet and very windy on the top, I was pretty toasty. I climbed from the Thirlmere side, which makes for a quick ascent up to the Helvellyn Little Man, but then you've got a long hike across the summit plateau over to the trig point. On days like today, the wind can be pretty awful up here, because there's very little shelter. On the eastern side of the mountains, there was a lot more snow built up, and I think red tarn and the edges would have looked fantastic. I was a little cautious to get too close to the edge though, since the wind was strong enough to push you, and no doubt the cliff edge above the tarn was a little corniced. I certainly wouldn't recommend standing on that snow unless you want to get to the bottom of the mountain by the shortest route. I did try a couple of pieces to camera up here, but honestly all you heard in the recordings was wind howling. This is finally the summit of Helvellyn though. There's the trig point, so a quick stop for a selfie and to admire the view, before moving off to the summit shelter. The summit shelter is not very far from the trig point, it's a couple of 100 metres south. It's your standard cross shelter, so it offers a break from the wind, but not much shelter from the rain. At this point though, I was pretty darn hungry, and I really didn't want to have to take my gloves off to eat, but I had to cave in eventually, because I just didn't have the dexterity with my gloves on. That's probably something I should work on. There were a few people sheltering up here and working on their sandwiches, but gosh, it was so cold. I don't think many people were staying at the top for long. Are you carrying on?
Sorry?
Are you carrying on? No, I'm going back.
Man, so the wind's behind us.
Just thinking. I know what the route's like.
Yeah,
I know that it's not that bad. I am dry, but it is brutal.
Just straight to me now.
It makes me panic when I can't get my gloves on.
No, that's hard. Honestly, that's what I'm running as well. There's all over mix, there's not much.
Yeah. Well, that's it. Helvellyn summited again. Just a little bit of snow, but an awful lot of rain. No real chance to get the crampons out, but we're not far from some decent snow hikes now, I think. Maybe another couple of weeks and we can get some proper winter hiking going. We'll keep swapping here.